All right, so much better than yesterday. So welcome to the second day of the Reducetarian Summit. We're so pleased to see you all here. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. First, in your program for the day, in your agenda, you'll notice that the panel times are correct today. The break times are a test to see how closely you're paying attention. The correct times are listed on the agenda outside the screen. Other couple of notes, the Wi-Fi today is still the same. You'll see them posted around the space as well. And then lastly, if we can just request that the area outside while panels are going on, to try to best as you can stay quiet in that area and reserve conversations for the Greenberg Lounge, simply to make sure that everybody can hear the panels. Other than that, enjoy the day. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to welcome everybody to day 2. Hope you're feeling rested and ready for another awesome day. So my name is Adam Chandler. I'm a New York-based journalist, and I would love to introduce my fellow panelists. To my right, Monica Klausner is the co-founder of Vistro, a gourmet plant-based meal delivery company. Molly Briner is currently the head of marketing at Aloha, a health and wellness brand creating sustainable solutions for eating well with organic plant-based nutritional products. And lastly, His Royal Highness Khalid bin Al-Walid bin Talal, Saudi Arabia, is an entrepreneur, philanthropist, tech enthusiast, investor, and advocate for clean energy, green building, and the humane treatment of animals. Okay, so just to get started, I'd love to get a little bit more context on our panelists and the work that they do. So I guess, tell me a little bit about your projects and how you found your way to them. What motivated you to get there?
So my brother is my business partner, and he was an investment banker getting home at 11 o'clock at night and finding himself eating a lot of frozen pizza. We grew up in Costa Rica, so we're used to eating a lot of fruits and veggies and not a lot of meat anyway. And so he used to call me and complain, why can't there just be somebody who brings me food that's delicious and it's healthy and it's the way we used to eat? I don't like to cook, so that was not going to be me. And so he came up with this idea. So at Vistro, we make fully prepared plant-based meals. We make them fresh and we ship them frozen straight to your door anywhere in the US. And the idea behind it is that you should have a healthy, delicious alternative in your freezer that is preservative-free, made with organic ingredients, something almost as if you had spent days cooking and put it all in the freezer. Single-portioned, nutrient-dense, that you can get to when you get home and you're just exhausted from the day or you just can't get it together to cook. So that's how we came to it.
Excellent. And before we continue, I encourage you, if you have questions for the panel, to submit them. We have a lot of gadgets around here collecting questions, and feel free to upvote the ones you're interested in, so keep that in mind.
Cool. Hi, guys. I'm Molly. So about 3.5 years ago, I worked for an organic baby food company, and we used to have meat in pouches, and we would try the food to make sure it tasted good for babies. And meat in a pouch does not taste good. It's really quite disgusting. And at the time, I had a 5-month-old. He's still around. And I was like, I can't feed this to my child. This is disgusting. And there are so many moms out there who just didn't have time, so exhausted, to be able to make their kids balanced meals. And so we tried actually to get pea protein into a pouch. And back then, it was still not very good, not really accessible from a sourcing standpoint. But I've been really passionate about how we can get a balanced diet of proteins and fibers and fruits and vegetables into everyone from adults to babies. And so it's been kind of a passion of mine. And when Aloha really set out on its mission to drive more plant-based foods and more plant-based ingredients, we sell organic plant-based protein powders, which has been a massive movement in the protein powder category that you guys are probably used to, the big black jars of whey protein. that's sort of how I found myself there. We'll get it back to babies. I actually give my kids our protein powder because it's so clean and good. But that's how I found myself at Aloha.
Thank you. By the way, if anyone has trouble hearing us in the back, just wave frantically, and I'll use that as a cue.
Hello, everyone. My name is Khalid. It really started for me when I was overweight and had a lot of cholesterol issues and whatnot. And going to the doctor, and doctor prescribing you all sorts of medicines and stuff like that. About a month into the medicine, joints started to hurt, insomnia, all sorts of weird stuff started happening. So I decided to ditch all the medicine and focus on maybe going on a plant-based diet. Did that for about a year. I went back to the doctor and did my blood work, but I didn't tell him I was actually vegan then. And he's like, great, the medicine is working, please continue what you're doing. I have news for you. I haven't been on the medicine for a year. He was dumbfounded, he couldn't believe it. I'm like, nope, I haven't been. You can test my blood, do anything you want, I'm not lying. But, well, it really just started from there. And then I started to learn a lot more about animal agriculture, about how the animals are treated for our consumption, for our leisure, so to speak, and testing on animals and stuff like that. So it really morphed into a more broader movement to eliminate this issue from this planet. So I decided to stop working from KBW Ventures as a CEO. I became a chairman of that, and I gave it to a friend of mine who's currently running the company. They focus on industrial stuff, construction, engineering, and whatnot. And I created KBW Ventures. And really, what the focus of KBW Ventures is alternative energy, renewable energy, clean eating, clean meat, restaurants that are plant-based, and stuff like that, to really try to give back to the environment, give back to the people, and give back to the governments, so to speak. Because when you come from a place like the Middle East, healthcare is subsidized heavily over there. So that's a big burden on the government. So the number one killer over there in the Middle East is heart disease, unlike here, obviously, but it's a big issue over there. So heart disease, diabetes, obesity is pretty high. Actually, Qatar overtook the United States as the number one obese country. So it's a real epidemic over there in the region. So I decided to focus on stuff that's really giving back to the environment, giving back to people, and giving back to animals. And protect what's not ours, but who are with us in this planet, and just to preserve life, really. And that's how it started.
Great. Awesome. So there's a pretty clear through line in these three bios, if you're paying close attention, or even if you're not. And just to kind of, I guess, expand on that, talking a lot about sort of health and access and convenience, I guess there's a broader question I want to ask about the role of business in all of this. There's a sense that I get oftentimes when you read or see an ad for a company or an initiative of any kind that aims to promote a different lifestyle in terms of health. And this isn't new, but I guess the question is it business role? Is the role of entrepreneurs and investors and people who are starting new businesses to tell people to live differently, or to provide products and hope that they come to them? Not that this is an either or, but how does that balance work?
That's actually a really interesting question. And for us, we really believe that everybody needs to eat more plants. So when we set out to create our business, we wanted our business to fit into your life so that it becomes a no-brainer. We don't want to have customers have to change what they're doing so that they can purchase our products. We want our products to be so easy and convenient that they become part of their life, just like soap or shampoo or toothpaste is part of your life. That's why we allow customers to buy a la carte, or buy a meal pack, or sign up for a subscription. Not everybody wants a subscription. Not everybody, is eating bistro every meal of the week. But if you want to do a Meatless Monday, there's your freezer full of Easter food. If you don't want to cook on the weekend, there you go. So I think the role of business, in order to make a significant impact, is to put out a product that is so easily integrated into consumers' lives that it becomes, it's not a hard decision to make.
Yeah, I think our business is very much aligned with that. I think what's happened in our category is historically you had a lot of brands who just spoke to the functionality of a product and inherently were then only speaking to that core consumer, so the vegans and the vegetarians, because it was a very function-led pack or brand positioning. And what Aloha's really done and focused on is creating a lifestyle around a brand and around a product that's inclusive but also aspirational and exciting and relatable. So not to say we overpromise of eat this product and then you will be this way, but to show eating well as part of a healthy, balanced lifestyle, and this lifestyle is what we're all out to achieve. So we have these 5 great pillars that one of them, yes, is about nourish, but the other ones are about movement, connectivity with one another, mindfulness, relaxation, so on and so forth. And I think for us, the differentiator and a lot of the brand love that we've built is around the movement that we have behind the brand, not just we're a plant-based protein powder, for example.
I think from an investor's point of view, rather than someone who actually does what you do, it's a very important topic. Personally, I wouldn't invest anything in anything that would harm animals, that would harm the environment. But if there's an alternative that's actually good for people and tastes good and it's readily available, would definitely be part of the discussion for that. And that's part of the mission that we strive at KBW Ventures. We look at companies that have these types of missions, so to speak. So companies like yourself, like Sakara, like other companies like that, we're very interested to look into them and actually expand their footprint outside of the United States and take them into the Middle East, for example. The purchasing power of the Middle East is absolutely enormous, and there's a real need for companies and entrepreneurs like yourselves in the region, and that's somewhat of what I do, trying to bridge that gap between the Middle East and the United States, and get these technologies, get these companies back to the Middle East and into people's hands. Just to create more awareness that there are other products out there instead of the fast food chains that you see and all that garbage that you see.
We should talk. I wanted to say something else. In terms of food, food is one of those pleasures in life, and the food that you eat should be delicious. If you're trying to live a healthier lifestyle and your food tastes like cardboard, what's the point?
That's true.
And how are you going to stick with it? You're going to go back to what you know that is delicious. So, when I talk to young entrepreneurs, which I do quite a bit, I always encourage them to focus on making something that is delicious and that people will fall in love with, because all you're trying to do as an entrepreneur is making the decision a lot easier. So if your food is delicious, hey, and it's healthy, bonus. But if it's delicious, that's what's going to drive the purchase.
If I may just add one more thing, actually, and you hit that right on the head. About 3 years or 4 years after going plant-based and whatnot, I decided to say, the Middle East has no options. We literally have no option. I had to literally learn how to cook just to actually start making some good food for myself instead of eating a salad and some fruit. So I decided to look into the plant-based world, and I met this, I'm sure you know him, Matthew Kenny. So we partnered with Matthew Kenny. We own a part of the business, and the first thing we did was take his philosophy and export it to the Middle East. So we opened our first plant-based restaurant called Plant Cafe in Bahrain. I think, what, 2.5, 3 months ago. It's doing really well. People are really excited, and more than excited, they're surprised that they don't understand the plant-based movement. They don't understand what plant-based really means. They see, I don't know, a cracker and some salad. Like, okay, that's your plant-based. It's a lot more. It's a lot more deep than that. So we're creating some really nutritious, really good-looking, tasty food over there, and it's growing. We've already got about, I don't know, 9 or 10 inquiries for franchising around the Middle East. So it's just about creating that awareness of people, and creating the ability to show people that it does taste good, it's good for you, and it's sustainable. You can live on this stuff. You know, it's not a fad. You know, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Excellent. I grew up in Texas, where I think plant-based crackers were the only thing, you know, I could come up with. It sounds eerily familiar to my life. So, yeah, another question, we're talking sort of about the interplay between, you know, how you position yourself. Here's another, I guess, quandary, is the question of profit versus ethics is something that I think is kind of central to this conversation. I'll try to briefly share a story. I met a young entrepreneur who opened an ice cream shop in Kansas City, which may not be totally relevant to this summit, but she was talking about using, you know, the best possible ingredients for ice cream sandwiches, and she ran into this problem where the packaging, she wanted completely biodegradable packaging for her items. The problem was the technology wasn't quite there yet, so when she would deliver them and they came in these packets, the ice cream sandwiches would kind of fall apart and be a mess. So she, you know, at the heart of this is a real question. Do you sacrifice on the quality or the sort of mission of your business in order to have these, you know, to have packaging that will last but isn't quite as sustainable? And that dynamic kind of has been, you know, kind of stuck with me as I think about these issues. So how do you balance that question, you know, it placed in a similar situation?
Wow, you're asking really hard questions today. That's, you know, it's always a question, ethics versus profits. And Mark and I believe that there's a way to do both. You know, there's definitely a way to do both. And so, you know, I hate to be constantly talking about our business, but this is sort of what I know. So I'll tell you what we have done. When we started the business, we bootstrapped it. So my brother and I, we had, you know, our money in it, and we had limited funds, and we had to find the best way to transport our meals from the West Coast to the East Coast frozen, and so that they would arrive in good shape. And initially, we started using these PET or plastic containers. We really struggled with that because growing up in Costa Rica, we've always lived a fairly sustainable life. Anyway, it's just sort of the way we live. But we really struggled with that, and we looked and looked and looked and tested all this packaging, and we finally found some compostable packaging. So the interesting part about it is that you do what you can to be ethical, and at some point, there are things that are just not available. Like you're talking about this girl with this woman with the ice cream sandwiches. You know, we still use EPS foam as an insulator. We have tested mushroom insulator. We have tested insulation made with denim. We had tested insulation made with recycled water bottles. And unfortunately, none of it holds as well. So there's a really fine line where we run into, it's not necessarily about profit, but it's about getting the product in the best shape possible to our customers. So we're constantly trying to find innovation to become fully sustainable. But it's a business, and we have some angel investors, and you know, there's such a fine line. I think it's always a struggle, but there's definitely a way to work towards fully ethical, and it can be done. Look, we source all of our food from organic farmers. So there's ways to do it as much as you can.
So I have a little bit of a different take on it, which is I actually think many businesses are being rewarded for their ethics, both from retailers and from end consumers. So retailers are driving a lot of this. For example, Whole Foods now looks almost exclusively at fair trade certified products. And they can do that because they have a lot of dominance in the marketplace, and they need and want to stay cutting edge on what is the very best we can do. And so they as a company have seen a lot of success being ethically driven, and therefore are driving a lot of the product innovation and driving their suppliers, so a lot of businesses out there, to be more ethical. And it's a win-win when you gain distribution at a Whole Foods. I also think there are both small and big corporations out there that are benefiting from this. So I think even just the notion and the momentum behind plant-based is a very ethical momentum. So we, while we never want to demonize meat eating, do as a business talk about the fact that eating more plants inherently means eating less meat, and that is really great for animal welfare. And so from an ethical standpoint, we feel pretty good about ourselves and that we are a great ethical alternative to eating whey and dairy-based products. And so I think that there, from a consumer standpoint, when that consumer demand increases for things like plant-based, when you look at the alternatives, it's a really great solution. And I'll just give one more example, which is big corporations like a General Mills. So they own a company called Kashi, which I'm sure we've all heard of. And they are doing something really great where they're doing transitional farming. And so they've got, as a big company, to be able to do this, which is they're going out and supporting farms going from conventional to organic, which is a 3-year process to turn over the soil and turn over the land into a certified organic business. And they are leading that mission to help grow organic farming, which is 1% in the United States right now, to, I think their goal is 10%. And driving that education and awareness with consumers, and therefore a willingness to pay for it, is both ethical and profitable.
I second that. I think that's one of the most important things that any corporation can do and should do. And then I think I'm seeing a really positive movement from an investor standpoint towards companies, and we're seeing that a lot of investors have got a bigger conditions to invest in these companies. So if you are sustainable, if you are thinking about the future, if you are thinking about the environment, you're more susceptible to getting more investment from people as opposed to not doing that. And that definitely holds true for our company. I mean, going back to Plant Cafe in Bahrain, the inquiries that we've got, 9 inquiries, each and every one of them, we tell them we have a pretty significant guideline that you guys have to abide by. So the packaging has to be this, the food cannot contain any animal products, it has to be fair trade and whatnot. So these are really important topics that I think I'm really seeing a very positive trend in businesses right now moving towards that.
Great. I'm going to toss this out to, I think there are ideas kind of popping out of my head from the crowd above me. Nina, where's Nina? Hi, Nina. Sorry, you have the most popular question. I wanted to give you credit for it. So Big Meat has a huge government lobby that keeps unhealthy food cheap. Do you see plant-based companies forming as powerful a lobby to start urging subsidies for fruit and veggie growers? Any thoughts on that?
You have to repeat that for me later. I didn't hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
hand it over.
I think it's really challenging. I think it's something that is going to take a long time and probably one of the biggest hurdles. And I think capitalism and consumer demand is going to drive that movement hopefully faster as, looking at you, Nina, as people just decrease their meat consumption. Maybe it's my personal bias too, but I think that it's going to be inherently an uphill battle, but you are seeing some of those big corporations who are the lobbyists, like a Hormel, making acquisitions in more sustainable food. So as they look at moving their portfolio into, they bought a stake in Beyond Meats, and as they evolve their portfolio, then their influence on the government will change. And then you are seeing some organizations come around for non-dairy milk associations and whatnot. So I think that they will certainly begin to influence, but it's definitely a big challenge for pricing.
I think that it takes a village to make change or to help with change, and the Plant-Based Foods Association, God, it's always hard for me to say at this time in the morning. I'm sure you all heard Michelle Simon speak yesterday in a panel. You know, there's definitely steps being made towards developing a lobby group for plant-based food, but we all need to get involved, and we all need to step up and affect change in our community, within our family, in our school, in the district, in our city. We all need to step in and affect the change. That's what's going to help, I think.
Great. To move on really quickly and keep this conversation going. So the second most popular question, or now the most popular question, and sorry, Nina, this one was anonymous out there. This is actually interesting, aside from it being a curiosity. So can you talk about successful marketing tactics you've used to target mediators? And what I like about this question is that if we're talking about challenging the meat lobby or big meat, that's sort of one dynamic is action, is sort of political action. And the everyday conversations you want to have with consumers or with your friends is another component to this, to this puzzle. Is how do you convince somebody to make a change in a way that's effective? So I'd love to get your thoughts on that because there are a lot of tactics out there. Some of them are more successful than others.
Yeah. When Brian reached out to me, I think last year, I was so excited, because the toughest thing for us being, fully plant-based is that people say something like this: "Oh my God, your food looks delicious, but I'm not vegan, so it's not for me." Okay, so we've worked really hard to change the way people look at plant-based food, and we don't necessarily target meat eaters, because like I said, we believe that everybody needs to eat more plants. So our approach has been a little bit more chill, and instead of saying you should or you need to, make it a little bit more reducetarian or increasetarian on the plant-based stuff. So eat more plants, because when you eat more plants, like Molly said, inherently you eat less meat. And something very interesting that happens, and I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but the more plants you eat, the more plants you want to eat, because you feel better, your energy levels are higher, you can think clearer, your skin clears up. There's so many amazing side effects or benefits of eating plants. So what we've done with our marketing messaging is we've turned it around into the positive. Here's a convenient way to eat more plants. You don't even have to think about it. You need to eat more plants. So here you go. Here's an enchilada casserole, and oh, by the way, it's fully plant-based. But that's how you increase, or that's how you get rid of that stigma that, oh, vegan food is not for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a little bit what we were talking about earlier, which is taste is probably one of the biggest barriers. So for us, just getting people to try our products and know that it tastes really good is the first hurdle. So pea protein has come a long way in the past couple of years. Thank God. Who knew that little pea would be such a shining star? And so I think both you've seen what it's done in the non-dairy milk alternatives, and there was a fair hurdle even 10 years ago, and then there was soy milk, and that got to taste pretty good, but then poor soy got put in timeout, and you can tell I have kids. But now, with the advent of all of these accessible nut and plant-based alternatives, people are trying them and they taste really great. And if something tastes good, you almost don't even have to convince them of the health benefits, though those are really the end goal and the end benefit. So I think for me, the biggest one that we've really focused on is getting people to try our products and having them taste really good.
I mean, going back to the hero, the pea, we're seeing a lot of amazing movements coming from really forward-driven companies. So Beyond Meat is one of them, and Possible Foods is another one. Hampton Creek, obviously, being in the forefront, in my opinion. So I don't think we need to do a lot of convincing to people. I don't think we need to tell people eat more plants. I mean, that's inherent. I mean, they hear that since they're kids, and if we keep beating that into them, they're just not going to. It's just human nature. But if we tell them that meat can taste good, because there are alternatives to meat and there are clean meat, so I'm an advisor to an organization called GFI, Good Food Institute, and this is an organization that's in the forefront of pushing these technologies into the market. I mean, honestly, go to their website and read what they're doing. It's absolutely fascinating. But anyway, convincing people to eat more plants and everything, that's always going to be an uphill battle, regardless of who or what and what the heck you say. It's always going to be an uphill battle. But if we have clean and better alternatives out there, like the veggie burger, the Beyond Burger or the Impossible Burger, or even clean meat, which I believe is going to be one of the biggest drivers to ending animal agriculture as we speak, within the next 10 years, I believe. And that's a very big, that's a very optimistic vision, I think, but I really do believe it's going to happen. Memphis Meats are one of the companies that are on the forefront of doing stuff like that. So I don't think you really need to convince people as much as we think. Please eat more plants, because you're not going to die if you do, or you're not going to get cancer if you do. You're not going to get heart disease. You're not going to get diabetes. And there are a lot of very compelling arguments, I believe. But people are still always going to be eating meat because it's the way they grew up and what they're used to. But there's always a better alternative, and I believe they're coming. And this is what we're really focused on as KPW Ventures. We're really focused on these companies, investing in these companies, and pushing these alternatives out, because it's better for the environment, better for people's health, and 100% better for our animals and the way they're treated.
I'll just add one more thing too. I think by making, in the world of packaging and communication, by making things more approachable. So not everybody shops their local co-op or their Whole Foods. And so by having these products in a mass retailer or mass grocer, they are very much increasing their organic footprint and their better for you products. So by having those products be able to sit next to a conventional product without being totally alienating makes that switching a lot more approachable for consumers. And that's how I think we'll get from kind of the people you have here today to a mass audience.
And convincing people to go plant-based and using tactics like the animal agriculture contributes more to harming the environment than the entire transportation industry combined. It's one of the main reasons for ocean dead zones. One of the main reasons for antibiotic resistance and all that stuff. That's all flashy. That's nice to hear. People don't care, and that's the sad part about it. And generally, people don't care. People care if it's selfish. People are selfish. People really want to care if it hurts them personally, and that's the reality of it. That's why watching something like Earthlings really hits people, because it really shows people what actually happens in these prisons. in these, anyway. But it's one of the worst things that can happen if you start to talk to people about how this is hurting them personally and how it can really affect them mentally with that. So all these flashy, now, Cowspiracy is one of the best documentaries I've seen. It really changed my view, and you really I use a lot of their research in whatever I do and talking to people and whatnot, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help. So you really have to affect people personally. So people need to eat the Impossible Burger and taste that this tastes like meat. And I'm not going to die from this. So this is a good alternative. Clean meat, which is going to happen very soon, is a great alternative. No antibiotics, it's a clean environment, and there's so many benefits from it. And it's being meat, so that's not necessarily the best thing for you, but if you're looking for that steak, that's a good alternative. So you really have to hit people personally to it, instead of just giving people this general idea of how the world might end in 2050 if we don't do that. Nobody cares. That's the sad part, and that's the reality of it. If people did the Leonardo DiCaprio's documentary, it would have been a hit. I watched it and I was like, why should I give a shit? I'm sorry, but why should I care? Because I watched it until the end, and what it said was the world's going to end. Okay, what am I going to do then? Where's the silver lining? And by the way, they give chickens 5 minutes of their 1 hour and a half documentary, which is full of shit. But anyway, that's another subject. No, sorry. So anyway, we'll go back to the actual reason. Just talk to people and make sure when you try to convince people, the tactics that you use are personal to them.
Yeah.
And that's really going to affect people's change.
I actually just want to piggyback on what Khalid said, that the messaging has been so negative and scary, and the world's going to end, and all of that, and people just shut off. Like, you start talking about that, and people just, you can see them, their eyes glaze over. So a personal message, but I think, we need to change the message to a positive. This is great, it's delicious, I feel great. So you talk about how you feel when you eat this way, and how it's a process. This is not, you don't need to do this cold turkey. Cold turkey is very scary, and no pun intended, but going from this to that is pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming, because how do I do this? And what do I eat? So it's a process, and I feel really good. I started, you just talk about your personal experiences and how positive it's felt, and it's a lot more relatable, because people want to look the way you look. Your skin looks great. What are you doing? This is what I'm doing.
Okay, well, we're on the topic of sort of naked self-interest in all of this, and how to convince consumers who are ultimately selfish, or your friends who are ultimately selfish. Not all of your friends, but some of your friends who are ultimately selfish. This is another question that I kind of want to riff on. It's how do you make products and initiatives like yours accessible to low-income consumers, both in terms of cost and marketing strategy? And before I even saw this question, I was thinking about this. I once had recently one of the most delicious $14 vegan quesadillas with cashew cheese. It was awesome, but it was $14. And if we're convincing people to make a change when there's just across the street a Taco Bell with a $2.99 quesadilla, how does cost factor into this? How do you make that calculation? And what is your audience if you are trying to reach people, but also sort of concentrated at a price point that makes it accessible to some and inaccessible to others? It's a softball.
The $1 million question.
Right.
That is always a concern. It always comes up. The difficult part is that organic produce is expensive. It's kind of ridiculous if you think about it, because they use no pesticides and they don't put anything in there. It's just the vegetables, for God's sake. But they're more expensive. and harder to source. Maybe not so much harder to source. We live in LA, and we're right at the center of all the farmers. But they are more expensive, and it makes it difficult to create products that can appeal to everybody. We work very hard to keep our prices low. So our prices are, our meals are full, like a full single serving for one person, and they range between $6 and $12. When you buy a pack, because it's frozen, you can buy 25 meals at once, they go down to $8 a meal, which is pretty darn good, I think. If you think about it, if you're at work and you go down to the bodega and you get a salad, that's $15 right there. We do the best we can, but until the raw materials price decreases, there's only so much that we can do.
I actually think you have a really good example, Adam. Maybe on the veggie burgers, just to throw it out there.
Oh, right.
I mean, I think it's really hard in that the incremental steps that we can make and going after that consumer is going to take a long time. But there are a lot of organizations out there that are just focused on eat more vegetable. I mean, actually at the basis, eating fruits and vegetables is less expensive than eating meat. But it goes back to the subsidies we see in the government with meat, and that you're able to get such low quality meat for such inexpensive prices. So I think a lot of it in my mind comes back to educating people around cooking themselves and making food for themselves, and bringing that back, like bringing the notion of eating and cooking back into people's lifestyles. Because when you are making food for yourself, you can make those incremental decisions a lot easier and add more beans into your diet, which aren't always available covered in a cashew Alfredo. So I think it's making these kind of incremental steps and also motivating people by having them cook food for themselves where they can make the biggest impact.
I have to speak as an investor, so obviously it's going to sound like I'm lobbying for some companies, but I'm not. Those are the companies that I know and I've dealt with before, and I'm dealing with it as we speak. So for example, Hampton Creek, they're a company that's really doing a lot of work for underprivileged countries, as well as places or cities in the United States. The work that the companies are doing is really, really important to get these prices lower, just for affordability side. But then you have to look into governments, honestly, and that's one of the biggest issues. You get about $30 billion of subsidies for the animal industry and the meat industry, and the dairy industry, and about $18 million of subsidies for vegetables. So that kind of tells you a story of where the money is going and why it's so expensive to buy vegetables. At the end of the day, I hear people talking about but going organic is really expensive. They haven't factored in cancer yet. They haven't factored in diabetes yet. They haven't factored in blood pressure stuff. They haven't factored in insurance and all that garbage. So it's always a relative thing, but for people. But in all honesty and reality, it's always going to be less expensive if you go on a plant-based diet and then you go on a reducetarian type of lifestyle. For me, a reducetarian mindset is a means to an end. The end is obviously going 100% plant-based or 100% clean meat, so to speak. But there is no way to tackle this issue, and that's the sad reality. But the corporations aren't going to do it. The sad reality is there's no way to get cheaper alternatives unless it comes directly from the government first, and then corporations, as opposed to going from corporations to the government. Government's always going to be bigger. Government is always going to be stronger. They're always going to regulate. They're always going to try to block non-dairy milks and whatnot, and alternatives to the dairy industry and the meat industry. So at the end of the day, as cliche as it sounds, talk to your congressman, talk to your senators, talk to your representative in your states, and make sure that they hear that this is what the people want.
Excellent. All right, we just have a few minutes left. I want to sort of end on an optimistic note, despite all this pessimism. that we're sort of faced with as we talk about these issues. So I guess in a minute, if anyone has maybe an anecdote or sort of a story of a kind of transformation, sort of a moment you've had a conversation with someone, or you've had an experience with an investor, a consumer, a friend about this kind of topic that you want to share. I think that would be a nice note to carry us out on Sunday morning. Really put you on the spot there, by the way.
So I run the marketing and the customer service at Bistro, and I talk to customers all the time because I need to know what's happening and what customers want and what they think of our food and what's working and what's not working. And my favorite conversations happen when somebody calls in and says, I just wanted to tell you thank you, because I don't like to cook, or I don't have time. I have 4 kids. I work full time. My husband works full time. And I've been able to lose weight without really even trying. I feel better. I just went to the doctor. My cholesterol numbers are lower. And I don't have to do anything except for order from you. So the change that we see, or that I hear from our customers, is people who are happy that there's a convenient way to really eat well and eat delicious food, because it all comes back to the food has to be delicious. If it's not delicious, it's just not going to work. So I'll tell you this very short story. We have a customer. He is somewhere in Georgia. I'm not exactly sure how he found us. He talks a lot, and he has a very thick accent, so I lose about 60% of what he says. But I've been talking to him for over a year. He's been on our weight loss program. And he really struggled in the beginning because he's one of those people who's really picky. So we have a wide variety of meals, but he really just wanted to eat things that he knew he was just getting started. So I said, we have chicken nuggets, we have pizza, we have things that you recognize. So he started with that. We've been talking and talking and talking. He has lost 70 pounds in 1 year. He only eats Bistro, which is not every customer. We have, not every customer eats only Bistro, but he only eats Bistro because he doesn't cook. And he called me recently and told me that he went to the doctor, and the doctor officially took him off his cholesterol meds because he had lost so much weight and his numbers were so good. And I literally cried. It's such, to say that it made my day was an understatement. It made my life. It changed his life. Anyway, I just thought I'd share.
Yeah. Can you top that?
I'm not going to even try and top that.
I forgot to tell you. So since then, remember I told you he started with the chicken nuggets. So now he actually eats salad. He never, ever, ever, ever ate salad before. He eats kale salad, of all things. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not going to try and top that one, but I have 2 really good friends who are 6'5" and 6 feet tall, and they work out 7 times a day, and are huge bodybuilders. And when we go, they're very good friends of ours. When we go away, they eat 6 chicken cutlets and a huge flank steak. I'm not kidding you, actually. They make 6 chicken cutlets and they cut it up and they eat it for breakfast. And they have a meat chant. It's very weird. And I was like, you guys, you've got to pull back on your meat consumption. This is crazy. Sort of explained to them the world of plant-based. Yeah, but it doesn't taste good. And these are the kind of people post-gym who are eating protein, drinking protein powders and maximizing for grams of protein. And I introduced them to our product line and was like, just try it, please. And now my friend Chris, who's 6'5", 240, all muscle, sends me pictures of his morning oatmeal with Aloha in it. It's just a big win to have people, even for me, just friends and family who are now consumers who are drastically decreasing their meat consumption and using our products. So it's nice little wins like that.
That's
Great.
One little story that I had was I'm trying to convince my dad to go on a plant-based diet, and we you convince your father. So you're always, if you're the son or the daughter, you're always the dumbest person in the world, and I know better, you know how it is. So I tried to convince him a few times. It was pretty, he was pescatarian, so it was, I guess, halfway there. And then I introduced him to How Not to Die, the book that Dr. Greger wrote. And he read it in August and turned vegan in December. And then I like to call it relapsed. He relapsed in January, and he says, I can't do it. I have no energy. I'm like, you have no energy? What are you on about? What do you eat? He says, well, I'm on 1,100 calories a day. Like, my daughter eats more than that. I know, man. So I tell them, you have to eat more. I'm like, no, because the old mentality is calories in, calories out, as we all know. So I contacted Dr. Greger. He actually flew to Riyadh, met with my dad, and sat with him with Dr. Brenda Davis. And they did a program for him. And he turned back vegan, and now he's eating a lot more calories, at least double that. And he turned back vegan. So that was one of the success stories that I was really happy with, because at the end of the day, he has a lot of people who follows him, a lot of people who listens to him and whatnot. So convincing him is like convincing another 100 or 200 people, if you know what I mean. And again, with your friend, and I've got a friend who's like 6'4". Roy knows him. Kevin. He's a tennis pro. He's top 50 in doubles, top 100 singles in the world. Really athletic guy. Meat, potatoes. That's all he does. Meat, potatoes, and all that. So I took him to Crossroads, him and another friend. And I didn't tell him it was a plant-based. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Crossroads, but it's a restaurant in Los Angeles, 100% plant-based. So I didn't tell him that it was a plant-based restaurant. So I was sitting there, and I went to the waiter, and I was like, listen, I'm going to tell you I'm vegan. You say, oh, you can only have the salad and maybe some fruit. But then you start talking to them about all their options and everything. So anyway, they ate the veal. They ate the hamburger, the Impossible Burger. They ate the Caesar salad. They had the cheesecake and whatnot. I was like, oh, man, I'm so sorry you couldn't eat this. This is so good. I feel so bad for you. And this is like an hour in, and I'm eating a shitty salad. Sorry. And I'm adding some fruit. And at the end of the thing, I told them, by the way, everything that you ate was plant-based. And I was like, you're shitting me. No way. Yep, everything is plant-based. So I was like, okay, now you're going to wait here for another hour and a half while I eat my goddamn food. So anyway. And he's vegan now, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
That's a good thing.
Excellent. That's a perfect note to end on. I guess the takeaway is it's not tell your friends and family to eat differently. It's to tell them they can't have what you're having, and you will convince them that way. So that's the end of the panel. Thank you very much. We have another one coming up. But yeah, a round of applause for our brilliant panelists.